On the left-hand bar of the screen, you should see a Q&A up.
Yeah, it says features disabled.
Why?
No idea. All right. And no viewers. So anyway, now that we're live, it's recording, so we should probably get started. Hi, my name is Tom Miller, and I am the creative director at LARPing.org. And with me this evening to talk about the amazing trip to Bicolline is Summer, the moderator, owner, and founder of LARP Haven, one of Facebook's top groups about live-action role-playing. Hi, Summer.
Hello, good evening.
And with us as well is Brian Adinga, questionably the manliest man ever to live. There isn't really much debate about it. I'm going to go with it. So we'd like to thank Brian for stopping with us. Brian was one of our guides this last year to Bicolline, and he's here to discuss with us about this last year and as well what we're going to be doing next year. All right. So I guess where we should start, we're going to have some people trickling in throughout the evening. Some people had to start a little bit later with us, and we had some people who just couldn't make it right off the beginning. So we'll get started, and as this goes, you'll see people jumping in, and we'll try to introduce them as we go, as well as we're going to be watching the chat as much as possible in the comment section and see if we can't answer any questions that might come up throughout the process. So to get started, I think the first thing we should do is say how awesome Bicolline was, first off. I don't think any of us have any doubts that it is questionably the best LARP in North America. I'm going to say it's my favorite this last year, and as well we're going to be doing next year. Oh, goodness. And I'm getting feedback from... Just couldn't make it. All right. So, gosh, what's going on? I guess where we should... Oh, there we go. Okay, I fixed it. So, I guess it's hard. You know, I'll let Summer and Brian, I'll let you guys kind of try to bring the scope and scale into something we can understand, and let you guys kind of try to explain it from your points of view, and then I can do the same from mine. But Summer, I'd love you to start and kind of say, how would you put Bicolline into words?
Okay. Well, I think that's a useful question. I think it's going to be more useful if I give you a small framing of my LARP experience in the United States. I have not been to a large-scale European LARP. And my introduction to LARPing was a small-scale community park, boffer LARPing, mostly with your low production value equipment and high levels of immersive imagination. That was where I got my start in the act of creative play for adults. So over the past couple of years, I've transitioned from a smaller scale setting to some of the larger chapters and games here in the United States that slightly higher production values, maybe more organized, multiple chapters in the same game system. So I've seen the game evolve, and then I've gained a completely unique perspective from my cross-cultural team there at LARP Haven, which ranges from New Zealand, Australia, Europe, Africa, to all of North America, to see that LARP is culturally very different in many places. That's where I first found mention of Bicolline, and it seemed most akin to the high production value, low rules, high immersion events that were popular throughout the rest of the globe. When I got to Bicolline, I will say that it struck me as a more of a creative vacation for those who came to enjoy it than anything else. Imagine a vacation amongst 2,500 of your closest friends that you just don't know are your closest friends yet, where
I think I could completely agree with that. It's totally true.
Right, it's totally true. Where the character is not used as a way to disguise yourself so much as it is used as social facilitation. It really allows everybody to be a lot friendlier. If you go to Bicolline, what you're going to have to assume is that they want you there and that they are glad that you are there. That's your first assumption. Second, assume that it is as much your responsibility to maintain the level of creativity and play as it is anyone else's. Nobody's going to carry you along there with using your imagination, but neither will you be pressured to participate where you don't feel comfortable. So Bicolline is if you're going to participate, you jump in all the way. If you're not, you are welcome to be there be observed and have an arm clasped on your back. I will say, in general, it is pretty much like going to an enormous Renaissance fair where you know everyone is going to beat on you once a day and then drink with you that night. Everyone you see in this street will probably try to take a good shot at you on the battlefield. You may be aligned with them today, and tomorrow you may be fighting with them again, but it's a lot of good-natured play in an enormous setting with 2,500 non-strangers.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic way, and I think the statement you made about it being almost a vacation aspect for a lot of people, I think is very true, and I think we should keep that in mind in explaining to people. The amount of immersion is very much based on, like you said, how deep you want to go. If you really want to make this something that's super immersive in character the entire time, you can do that. In summer, you spent a ton of time going around to different camps and to and kind of I don't want to give it away, but you can explain it later exactly what you did because it was awesome. And I think you're exactly right to say that you really you make your experience. They're not going to hand feed you anything except for the fights. Those get thrown out, and you get to jump in if you want. And if not, you can always kind of step back and watch safely from the sidelines, which is great. There's tons of different roles that need to be played on the battlefield, and we saw tons of people who didn't want to fight out there supporting their group by carrying water and being a non-combatant player on the battlefield. So even that, you kind of get to choose what you want to do. Brian, your experience is a lot different. You and I spent a lot of time all the diplomatic stuff when we weren't fighting. We spent a lot of time going to different camps. Maybe explain a little bit of your experience with LARP as well, and kind of how you came about coming to Bicolline, and also your part in the Voyage North.
I've been LARPing for about 23 years. I saw it for the first time when I was 13. I was too young, and so I actually had to wait till I was 14 to actually sign up. So I've been LARPing for a very long time, and most of my stuff is a lot like Summer's, where it's very boffer style. And after that long, you kind of long for something more immersive and more roleplay intense, something that kind of delves more into politics and psychology and all sorts of different things that you want to explore as a player, as a human being. And so I branched out into other LARPs probably within year 17 of my LARPing, and trying to really go beyond the combat aspect of LARPing. And that kind of brought me into the search for Bicolline and all of that, and trying to find more European style high immersive LARPs. And so Bico was definitely the one that that stood out for me. I started looking at a lot of the YouTube videos, and that's what kind of opened it up for me to really discover Bico. And then just one year, I just decided, let's just go for it. I just went out by myself. I tried to connect with a few people, and Bico is a lot like Summer said. They're like distant family members that will bring you in when it's like, oh, you're coming from where? Fine, you could stay in our tent, or you can stay in our cabin, or something like that. And they've never met me before, but they were willing to really open up their hospitality to me. They were willing to pick me up at the airport, drive me to the event, house me for the entire week, even feed me, and then drop me off. I mean, that's Bico in a nutshell, as far as like
Absolutely.
a lot of the LARPs that I've been to. They're not like that at all, and they're kind of like, well, if you pay for gas and you only carry a small suitcase, we might pick you up, but you're gonna have to find your own ride home or something like that. And that's how a typical kind of American LARP is for me, my experience, anyways. And Bico is a special place. It's like, it's so immersive, it's so interesting that I just watched a video where a European LARP was saying how cool Bico was. How usually it's a lot of the the other way around. Like a lot of American LARPs are saying how cool European LARPs are and how big they are and how the kit is. And I just heard somebody from Europe saying how awesome Bico is. And so that's kind of like if they're referencing something in North America, then Bico's doing something right.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I completely agree. And kind of explain, if you could, a little bit about your role with the group and kind of how you got involved with Voyage North, and perhaps how you can kind of put things into scale your involvement with everything, because I think your experience is much different than some of the other people in our group. You and I had some similar experiences, but that's because we spent a lot of time together. I think it'd be really cool for people to kind of get an idea of what you did.
My role was a very interesting one. I felt a lot like Arm Candy. So wherever I went, it was kind of like I was just a big scary guy that just showed up and just looked tough. And when I was out in the field, I mean, I was fury incarnate.
I would disagree with you so strongly.
In what way?
Okay, so what you guys need to understand is that Brian role plays a very strong silent warrior type, but he may have been arm candy, or as I like to say, shield candy. But beyond that, when Ulfgar spoke, everyone else stopped speaking. So he got to play the authority dropper. It was pretty funny, except for those of us who had characters that would find that hilarious in and of itself. But no, Brian played the disciplinarian.
Completely.
True. And I tried to. A lot of my role play decisions had a lot more to do with. I had to keep everything short and sweet, and I wanted to be very direct as to what I said and why I was saying it, and it had to be necessary to say it. I didn't just talk fluff.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think it's really cool, especially in how kind of the Voyage North went about becoming what the Voyage North was. What was really cool was a little backstory. Brian was he's kind of the poster boy, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Brian, but if you look at any of the art or any of the marketing stuff from the last 2 years of Bicolline, you'll notice Brian's face is everywhere, and I mean everywhere. You can find his picture just about. Yeah, right there. He's holding up the little note thing that you get for Bicolline. Like he is the face of Bicolline in a lot of ways, and fantastic photographer that's out there all the time. In fact, lives right on Bicolline land. Eric Dubé is really caught a lot of great photographs of Brian and his character Ulfgar with one of the best kits you'll see out there. Absolutely gorgeous armor. And we contacted LARPing.org, that is, contacted Brian and said, hey, we really want to bring a group of 30 or so Americans or just individuals who haven't been to Bicolline and bring them to Bicolline and have people there that can support us to make sure that everyone's having fun, kind of has an idea of what they need to be doing to capture as much of this as possible. And we thought that would be easy. Finding out later, you can't really do that. What you can do is the best way to put it in the way that it was explained to me after the fact, and I really like it, was you can't wrangle cats, but you can move the bowl of milk. And we just kind of, Brian and Pat Penning, the owner of Epic Armor Canada, who is completely paramount to making it happen, and Jamie, one of our other team members, they helped to kind of make sure that the milk was in the right place. And Brian's job was to help us understand from an American standpoint of LARP, where the games are much smaller, how we can translate this easily to people who have never been to Bicolline. And Brian stepped into those shoes perfectly and helped us make that happen. And then once we got there, played a character that was both in character an authority figure, but also from a standpoint of out of character, of understanding that his place in the group was kind of a spirit guide of sorts for people. He also played that part very well, and he melded the two together. So maybe, Brian, you could explain a little bit about the geopolitical side of things as well, and we could kind of go over that. But before I do that, actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. We've got one other person here in the hangout that we absolutely need to introduce. That is Jordan Vick, who our master of knots, as we put him, and we'll get to that story on why we call him that. But he another one of the guys that joined us. Jordan, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be fantastic.
I am Jordan, in-game core. I joined the group through one of my friends that I LARP with over here in Washington State. He told me about this group. He was really into going, and then he ended up dropping out of the group last minute and didn't end up being able to go, but it was definitely worth going, and I'd recommend it to anybody. It's a hell of a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. Thanks. And we're going to jump into a bit of your stories here in a minute because you've had some pretty interesting ones while we were out as well. But I wanted to jump back real quick, if we could, to Brian and kind of let Brian, because you and I spent a lot of time doing the geopolitical side of things, and maybe you could explain in your words how that works and how that plays into the whole thing, and maybe that'll give people an understanding of what drives the game in a weird way.
That's a big question. Essentially, every guild is vying for a piece of the map, and it's usually driven by roleplay. It's some of it's driven by like power in the virtual game and like how much you own in the virtual game, like how much money, how much goods or ships or people or whatever. And so you would trade or you would go to war to gather these necessary things that you need. Now, if you just wanted to invade another country, it could be because of role play reasons, like they're housing witches there, and so say the Redemption would be one of the guilds, and they would just invade that country to rout this evil. And so sometimes the actions are done because of roleplay reasons. And so sometimes it is kind of like, you invaded our country, but now we're mounting a counterattack onto your lands. And so, that's what I did with one of the campaigns with Rattan, one of the king that had hired us as a mercenary guild, is that we helped him not only during the Great Battle, but during this campaign, which is just a one-day event. And we in each battle, even each skirmish, it could be over a piece of land or something like that, and you're kind of invading, and you're vying for control over property, essentially, or you're defending. You're doing it's a huge map, and not one person owns all of it. Everybody's fighting over their little piece and trying to gather more pieces, or just trying to defend their piece and trying to help other allies defend their pieces.
Yeah. So I mean, I think another way to describe it would almost be like a giant game of Risk.
Really?
And you think of when you move an army piece in Risk into a new territory. In Risk, you do it just simply to gain that territory. Or the resources in that territory, or the specific things you need. But in Bicolline, when you move that piece, like Brian said, it could be for roleplay reasons, and our group is against witches and witchcraft, so we're going to move in there because they're harboring witches in this kingdom. But when you move that piece, it isn't just simply you move that piece and now there's a dice roll. That dice roll is played out literally as a giant battle, and we're talking 1,000 people on the field. Huge pieces of warfare that go into this. You've got 200 or 300 people on either side, and mercenaries that aren't in particular guilds that each group is trying to vie allegiance for. I think it's very, very complicated, and the great part is you can be in a guild, or you can choose to be completely on your own. And you'll find that each person has value because every group wants that extra person. Because if I have that extra person, it's one more person to fight against my enemies. And that's really, that's something that a lot of games miss out on, and Bicolline does a fantastic job of bringing in all the little people, and little people in the sense of you're not aligned with a particular guild or group. So when you move that piece, you have a battle that says whether or not you've been successful in taking that land, because you're fighting now for that land. But you also have geopolitical trades going on. You have alliances that are built and broken. It's think of it like a real world, because it is, in a weird way, a real world. It just
Right.
happens to be completely built around a LARP,
It
and it
is.
is unbelievable.
Tom, I was wondering if I could take a second to
Hmm.
kind of, for American LARPers, to give a very quick overview of the types of fun that are available to you at Bicolline.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so Brian and Tom, and probably Jordan, are all very heavily invested in simulationist combat. That is what their fun is, and that's where it comes from. But there's more than that available to you in Bicolline. So as somebody who has a little bit of a different fun profile, I wanted to give you an overview of all the activities that are available to you at Bicolline, so you're not surprised when you get there, and you're prepared with ways to have the most fun you can on your own. There are scheduled battles every day that are driven by geopolitical agreements and intrigue. The people who come to those agreements, that's obviously a smaller group, and that's usually established people who have been there, which is something you can work towards. Combat is there for you every day. There is also organized sport that is done in character of several varieties. An ongoing league called Trollball International, which is actually a .org organization with leagues even outside of Canada that are represented. You can find a lot of that info on Bico's page. It's pretty fascinating. As well as contests like strongman contests, chess competitions, things that are laid out on the quest board every day that you can sign up for ahead of the event and participate in. So there's a lot of guided activities. There's also a lot of unguided activity. A lot of American LARPers are either very heavily sport related or very heavily story invested. Long continuum. For heavily story invested individuals, I will tell you that most of the story related plot at Bicolline is between players and driven by guilds. So if there is a social or a political aspect to the game that you want to pursue that is outside the very outline only plot provided for geopolitical and battle and contest, you need to generate that yourself, which is not bad. I do that a lot of that myself. Now, their plot team will not stand in your way. As a matter of fact, guilds often make story, plot, and adventure for each other. There is also a lot of scheduled activities and quests made for children. Families are very, very common in Bicolline. On top of that, there's scheduled entertainment and amusements at night. So they will bring in groups to play music, there will be parties, there will be ceremonies, there will be activities and events that just happen. But for the most part, in the in-between spaces, if you find it of interest to develop your character there, you're free to do that on a one-by-one basis. And most characters at Bicolline will respond very well to that, because to them the adventure is finding out who they are with you and what kind of trouble you can get into together. I will tell you, the way to stumble upon the most unusual adventures in Bicolline is to go out and make some social contacts. It's
Absolutely.
all about who you know and who you are willing to say hi to, even as a new person. So again, if you're American LARPer, there's a lot of scheduled sport, there's a lot of combat events, there's a lot of physicality, there's a lot of league sports. If you're someone who enjoys spectacle, there's a lot of that planned for the evening. The gastronomy is amazing that's available to you. There's a lot of family events, and social and story is on your own, but very much there.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think something. I mean, I think it was really cool that summer that you did was you played a character that did get really involved with different groups, and your experience was unique to everyone in our group, because you went to groups that none of us went to, guilds that had big guild houses, and you went to their leaders and did something really unique that threw off some of them, and some of them were really intrigued by it. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you developed a character and kind of what you did, because it was really resourceful for the whole group, thankfully, but also really funny because we had guys who didn't know much about the Order of Seville, our guild, but they knew about that one rune-reading woman that scared the pants off of them. So maybe you could explain a little bit about that, because it was really entertaining to see and talk to people after the fact.
Yeah, it's not something I would advise everybody go to Bico and do, but I have a character that I find very useful for breaking the ice in new situations, because I found it's really useful to talk all about someone else when you want to get to know them. And I use rune stones to do fortune telling in game. Not only fortune telling, but kind of a life dissection and analysis. And it cut a little close to home for a great many people. So one night I decided I was going to make my own plot and my own story. Once I had figured out that they all want you to be there and they will all open the door and welcome you in. I don't speak a lot of French, but I drug my buddy John along with me, played a character named Tempo in a big candelabra full of burning candles, and I went from door to door to door and started knocking and telling them I was there to tell them their fate. Um, Through really hilarious mistranslation and a lot of atmospheric hoodoo, I think I scared quite a few people, but also bonded with several of them quite well, to the point where we ended up gaining an inherent trust as the guild, because we had the goods on a lot of people.
Yeah, we learned so much about different groups from those encounters. It was really funny to have your situation with one of the warlords where he gave you a sheep,
Yes.
which you named Bab, which was hilarious, and all of the shenanigans that went on because of Bab.
There will probably end up being a war over the sheep as much as Tom hates it.
Tom's character.
Sir Thomas. War. Sir Thomas was very upset that there might be a war over the sheep. Well, I'm sorry, but religion is on Cora's side. Religion is on my character's side. We got the priestess to agree that the sheep was a principle and that our octopus god must defend it. So.
We'll go into exactly what happened there, because it's complete ridiculousness. And Brian and I were part of what was one of the craziest experiences I've ever had in LARP. I think might be the most crazy experience I've ever had with LARP.
Right.
But then also what ended up happening because of it was just complete nonsense. And nonsense in the best kind of way. But I think you're completely right to say that the ice breaking that you did through your own character development was a great way for yourself and the people around you to engage Bicolline on a wider level that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise, and we're obviously extremely thankful for that. I think that would be a good kind of segue into the whole thing of questing not being the same way you find in other games with Bicolline. And sometimes you do have some very standard kind of like, hey, there's a quest trigger or a particular person you talk to and it opens up this opportunity. But a lot of those opportunities are more organic because you have so many people. In a game where you only have 100 people, there's a particular NPC put somewhere and you're supposed to talk to that person and it opens up a quest or a storyline or a battle or whatever. At Bicolline, that's done completely just because it's organic. And someone might need something and they might ask you to do something, and in a 100-person game that's developed by story or by the plot team. But at Bicolline, that's purely players having problems they need you to solve. And one of those situations was kind of crazy because we were approached by some friends of the guild to do some mercenary work, to basically protect some mages and keep them from getting attacked as they looked for a treasure.
Let's make sure that we don't name names and keep...
No. We'll make sure that we keep this from going too meta.
Yeah, exactly. Loose lips sink virtual ships.
Yeah, we don't want to sing any virtual ships here.
I want my sheep back.
It's a real living world. And if I said something out of game, this might completely change a story for other people. So, and some of this has been posted Personally, I've posted a story about this, so some of this is available elsewhere. But generally, what was asked was for us to protect some people, and I think we can kind of name who the protagonist in this situation was, but also who the antagonist was. And then Brian, maybe you can tell a little bit of how that all went, and then maybe we'll transfer into the story of the losing of Bab.
All right. We were just coming off of a field of battle, and we were immediately confronted, or not confronted, but propositioned by another guild to do some bodyguard duty. And so immediately I had to go back to camp and tell people to not really dress down or go shower, to immediately grab them and head back out to the field and protect these people in this field while they search for this very important item. And so I think we got out there within like 15-20 minutes, and we were wandering around, and we saw other people wandering around as well. And my skeptical meter definitely was going off the charts, because it's like, okay, they're after the same thing we are, and or at least our employers are. And so, but Tom was like, oh, they were just completely lost, and they had no idea what they were doing out there. So I don't know. I mean, Tom
trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I didn't know at the time.
Yeah. It's like, if you guys need to sell Tom beachfront property in Arizona, now's the time.
Yeah.
And so we're out there, and we find out that they want us to stay out and be a distraction. And so as soon as we start heading out of the woods where we met our contacts, we saw those two pirates. They were part of the pirate guild, so I'm just going to name those guys. And so
yeah.
And so we see them, and then Tom has this idea where he's going to go down the other side of the woods and then come in at one angle. But I'm way too far away to really help him if there was any real issue going on. So Tom walks up and goes, "Hey, nice day, isn't it?" And he cuts the guts out of one guy with a LARP dagger. And so the other guy has a two-handed sword, so he's kind of fumbling with it. I think, Tom, you were trying to help him, but what did you do? Did you trip or something?
Well, I walked up to the two of them, and I had a dagger on the back of my belt that ran horizontal to my belt, and I kind of walked up nonchalant, and I started conversation. As I got close enough to attack, I was within measure. I pulled the dagger and cut the guts on the first guy, and it was like, you're down. I turned to the second guy, and he had moved further enough away that I couldn't catch him with the dagger. Mm-hmm. And I went to draw my sword, and he pulled out his big long sword, and I'm fumbling for my weapon, and I can't really get it out, and he manages to position himself in a place that I've got the sun in my eyes, and I can't really quickly move on him, so I pull my sword out and kind of run toward him, and we met, and my sword managed to get under him, and I missed his leg, but he managed to catch me in the chest, and I was not wearing armor, and so I was down. I was cut across the chest. I was bleeding out. I was in serious trouble, and then out of nowhere, as I'm falling to the ground, I looked up and I said, "Have fun with my friend." And as I fell, Brian comes barreling out of the woods, sword in hand, just like the scariest thing you've ever seen in your life, just barreling toward him. And you came in, and you went to cut him, and he went to catch across, and he nicked you in the leg. But you managed to hit him about 3 times in the chest by the time he hit you once. So you were down. And your leg had been cut open, and you weren't able to really get anywhere, and he was dead. And we were kind of in a weird situation where Ryan was bleeding out, and I was dead.
Yeah.
And Bicolline has some interesting rules about respawn in the field on certain situations like that. And the main one is there's a particular bridge, and if you're in combat, if you make it back to that bridge while dead, so you put your weapon on your head and you walk back to this bridge, you can respawn and re-enter the field. And I'd like to point out that in most games this distance would be, quarter of a mile. At Bicolline, you're talking about a 15-minute walk.
Yeah.
through trails, down hills, across another field to a bridge, and then you have to get all the way back.
It's a significant effort to voluntarily respawn in the field.
Absolutely. A lot of people just die and they wait for something to end and then they're done for the for that particular situation. We realized that we were still on contract.
Yeah.
And we still had a job to do. So you can't run back to respawn, you have to walk. You're a ghost. You can float along slowly. So we walked back, and Brian, maybe you can pick it up from there.
So yeah, we're kind of the pirates who are also dead. They're up on the field watching us, and so
no, they're not necessarily watching you. One of them is getting told about his poor life choices.
Oh, right. You harassed the one guy.
That happened afterwards, though. No, wait, no, you're right. We were laying there waiting to kind of like figure out what to do, but then yeah, you definitely were talking to corpses.
Right.
So you can take it from here.
Just for a moment. So these two yahoos pulled me out of camp to go on this mission saying, your runes will be very important, which I think they were just saying we need a warm body, and didn't tell me to go into stealth mode. My character is a gypsy. I was covered in bells, and we were supposed to be stealthy in the woods. So I did the only intelligent thing I could do once we got to the woods, let them go out and prowl and keep my butt really still in the woods. So I see them kill these guys and get killed themselves. Now here's the problem. Brian's character was only injured, Ulfgar. I had zero idea about the death and injury rules at this point. I didn't know that you can talk to corpses, and if you talk to corpses, that the information is known in game. So while the pirate...
Rules are very... So, it's kind of like as a player, you can use that when you're dead, but you can't talk when you're dead. I mean, that's the general rule of thumb.
Right. Things were a little loose up there, yeah. And I wasn't sure what was going on, but I assumed that my guys were down for 5 minutes. So I wanted the pirate to come back so I could question him. So I started doing a rune reading to tell him about his very poor life choices so he'd at least have an entertaining dream while he was dead. While it was hilarious, he learned a lot about his mother and his mother's true feelings for him during that death. He unfortunately got the measure of where we were and what we had going on. And when he came back to life or decided to go respawn, he brought back some of his buddies later. So long story short, Brian was sitting there on the ground the whole time, not quite dead, just disabled. And I could have sped up the situation significantly. Anyway, they had our number. They knew we were there. Our guys had to respawn. Their guys had to respawn. And later they met up with us again.
So Brian, maybe you can jump in on that respawn point and say kind of what happened there.
Okay, so when we respawned, we went back. The pirates left, but then they came back with I think 7 total. They were just 2, but then they came with 5 more guys, all armored.
Yeah, they were
approaching a group of what that point was 4 women and 1 Ulfgar, with one of the women pretending to be very elderly and frail on the ground nursing her leg.
Yeah.
And I was with one of our scout archers, with one of their group, looking for this particular thing they were looking for, of which we didn't find, but we did find something else, and I won't say what because I don't want to meta that. But needless to say, the pirates wanted that even more. They wanted that a lot, and for good reason. And so what resulted was Ulfgar quickly running through the woods to find us, and he says, "You guys gotta get out of here. They're in armor, silver and plate. They're not happy,
right?
And they're coming for us." And then just after he says that, I hear ka-clunk, 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 and they are coming through the woods.
So what happened while Tom was away, and Ulfgar was away telling Sir Thomas all of this information, is that because I had a misunderstanding about what information is carried over when you have a meta conversation during death, I, as an American LARPer, thought they didn't really have any of those conversations with me in game, so I can still play off while I'm here. I wasn't around when my guys killed them and they killed my guys. They can't recognize me. They don't know who I am. They just have a vague recollection of how much their mother really despised them upon birth. So we continued with these 4 women and Ulfgar off in the corner of the woods, pretending we were doing some sort of prophetic ritual with the runestones in the field. We were pretty stinking convincing, and we talked smack with the pirates, because I have a problem and I can't not talk smack, for about 15 minutes while Ulfgar was off warning Sir Thomas. During that time, the ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk they heard was pirates walking up to a group of women kneeling on the ground and ceremoniously chopping off their heads with polearms, including. And during this time, because I may in poor taste have searched the dead pirate that I gave the insulting reading to, after I learned his gender after he was born, that he also wanted to search me. And not knowing the searching rules at the time, he said anything of significance. And I had one thing that I had gotten from a reading. I had a resource card of a sheep that I had named Bab. And he was my sheep. And I loved Bab. And we were getting ready to rep him and bring him next year. And he took my sheep.
Oh,
and
man.
that's when the gentleman re-entered the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So Bab had been taken. And just to kind of reiterate, we weren't really, I wasn't aware of this either at the time, but resource cards represent what it is that the resource card is. So if you have a resource card for ore, that ore is representing what your group owns. Back at your camp, it's at a place of safety. It can't be taken. In the same way, a sheep couldn't be taken because, Summer's not running around with literally Bab in her arms running around with a sheep.
I tried.
It's just representative.
It's going to be there next year once we get Bab back.
We'll get Bab back because But what we didn't realize at the time was, what we didn't realize is that Bab, had been taken and we didn't understand the rules. So we thought now we've got to basically go slaughter some pirates to go get this sheep back because Summer has become emotionally engaged with the sheep, and she loves this sheep more than she loves anything. And we thought it was hilarious.
It was Cora's first possession in a new world, and as a very materialistic character, it was hers.
Yep. So that was kind of an experience, and all the things that happened after that in the process of trying to negotiate with pirates to get a sheep back. And it got really interesting. That's why she says we may go to war over a sheep. We'll see how that works. Their children.
They gave it to their children, and that's just not okay.
Oh, it's just not okay. So, either way, I'd like to introduce real quick another individual. One of the individuals that I have to thank hugely for kind of jumping in and helping out, which is Richard. Richard came all the way from Seattle for the trip. Him and his wife Camara, who were fantastic and absolutely helpful. And Richard's position was actually honored by a position elected by the players that came with us to sit on the Council of Five with our guild. And so I'd like to introduce Richard. Maybe you'd like to be able to real quick say a little bit about yourself, your experience with LARP, and a quick thought about Bicolline. We'll probably be coming back to you for some story.
So hi, I'm Richard. I'm the Auto Servi's second beard.
There you go.
Can't compete with that one, not yet.
Oh, it's a beard off. Oh gosh.
You can stop brushing. Don't wash your face. Work out more. You are.
Working on all of that.
Yeah.
Learn to lift women with your beard.
To be clear, it is not necessary to either own a sheep or have a beard to have a good time at Bicolline.
Yeah, we got Jordan here. He's got neither.
It does help.
I didn't when I started. I'm starting to grow something out. Hopefully it'll be big enough by
There we go. So go ahead, Richard.
I I'm originally South African. I moved to the UK, spent 10 years out, and that's my wife, Cameron. Um, spent 10 years living in the UK and LARPed over there quite a lot, and then moved out to Seattle with my wife, and have played in a lot of the LARP groups in the Northwest. So, yeah, while I don't have any real long-term with any one group experience, I have a lot of varied experience with different styles of LARPing and in different places with different groups. Yeah, I was the first elected member of the Council of Five. I think it was the first, wasn't I? Yes.
You were? Absolutely.
Yep, first elected member of the Council of Five. That was a fun night, and I will be helping in an out-of-game fashion as well as an in-game fashion to organize the group for next year.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's the other thing is a lot of what we do in-game as a guild also kind of translates into the out-of-game, and the people that were with us understood that to a particular degree. And one of the things that we're working toward next year is fixing some of the things where out-of-game and in-game are communicated a little bit more clear. Because it's kind of weird because LARPing.org running a trip like this doesn't actually mean that it controls the group in-game. We wanted to make sure that the people that came with us and created Ordre Civi control and run Ordre Civi, and figuring out how that all worked the first year was really cool and interesting, and obviously some things are going to change for next year, but we really had a lot of fun and have a lot to thank, especially Richard and Chimera for helping us out with that. So I guess something that we can also discuss that I think is really important specifically for people who've never been to Bicolline and are interested in going is the experiences you guys had with the camping and with the gear that you brought, perhaps, and kind of the way that you perceived Bicolline before coming, and then what you learned once you got there. And maybe we'll keep this to a couple minutes per person so we can get through everybody. We'll start with Summer.
Okay. I am not a roughing it kind of girl. So when you go to Bicolline, there's a couple of really important things you need to know. If you are going to a group and you are sharing a tent, you need to be prepared to manage your stuff, because no matter how lightly you pack, 5 people in a tent with lots of kit, with there being dirt on the ground, means things everywhere. So manage your kit. My recommendation is once you get there to go to Walmart, spend $20 on a plastic shelving unit, and throw your luggage up on it. Believe me, inside the tent, it's easy that way. Inside the tent does not have to be decorum, so that's your savior. Also, if you want to control your sleeping environment, make sure you check with your group to find out if you have room for your own tent. You know, you've got a certain amount of geographic space per group, so make sure you've got that settled. Also, from a shower perspective, there is a river, and I bathed in it once. To say that I did. Do it before sundown starts.
Yes.
That's all I have to say. And make sure the pirates haven't taken the river as a back way to the battlefield earlier that day, or you will not see anything under your feet and think about nothing but what kind of fishes are coming up to bite your knees. There is a hot shower available about 2 miles away. If you decide to hitchhike to that shower, just wear your cloak. People know Bicolline around that area and will take you to the showers and take you back. So for $7 you can get a hot shower. But I would recommend that you rent a car or have some transportation if you want to go out and get civilization, if you are a weakling like me and need some transition time for a week-long event. However, if you are used to not bathing frequently and immersing yourself in that way, you are in heaven because everyone else will smell like you.
Mostly like campfires.
That is true to a pretty good point. And keep in mind there are also showers on site, but they are not warm showers. They are just fed directly from a water line in. So depending on how much sun there is that day, you might have a lukewarm shower. If it's been cold and raining, like it was almost the entire time we were there, those showers are not warm.
Did they exist? I couldn't find them.
They're right next to the river.
Yeah, they're right next to the river. They're down by like near Lumut, by the area
Lowtown.
Those
Low
were real?
Yeah.
I swam in a river!
Yeah, it's fantastic. If you're like me, though.
You got
I showered every day, but my shower was inside of a fantastic Canadian stream, and with the best Canadian all-natural mud to
Okay,
help
okay,
scrub
okay,
off all
okay.
the dirt.
My last note is for next year, and if you anticipate on going. If I go next year, which I'm going to try, I'm driving. And if I'm driving, I already know the equipment I am purchasing to have a propane tank on site and have a hot shower that is high available. It'll require you to chug some water, but also will have walls and sides. Now, there will be a charge to use said shower. And if I wish to use it, I love you all, but you're going to wait. But there will be a hot shower available on site. I'm done.
Okay, that segues into some of the things that me and Valerie were talking about, and having like propane heated shower stalls for both men and women. So you'd have 2 stalls, and it would be available for the hors d'oeuvre, and it would be in a private tent. Each side would, have the entrance for, the men, and the other side would have the entrance for the women.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be, of course, a private, a courtesy, little curtain that would separate the two. Two sides. And so, the shower situation is kind of tough. If you're a part of the combat, it's usually like after the last combat of the day, the last skirmish of the day, you're already pretty warmed up, and jumping in that river feels pretty darn good.
It can. Sure.
And everybody else has the same idea. And if you have, conservative views, maybe you should wear some shorts, because there are going to be some people that are going to be nude.
Does happen.
It does happen. If you don't feel comfortable with that, solar showers, those little bags, a lot of people use them. The other option is baby wipes, little wet ones to help clean yourself in your tent. Done it in the military. It works just fine. I know Summer, but I mean, you're a girly girl. I understand you don't want to deal with that, but it's your option.
I throw crawfish at boys. That doesn't mean I don't like showers. If I had found some crawfish, I would have thrown them at the people laughing at me on the bank of the river while I tried to get the courage to dunk myself.
Okay.
I'm done.
There you go.
Okay.
So real quick, your perception of LARP, or not LARP, your perception of Bicolline before you came to Bicolline, and your perception afterward in a couple of seconds. What would you say that would be, Summer?
Before Bicolline, I thought it was going to be a grand fantasy adventure on a very large scale. My perception after Bicolline is it is a grand battle adventure beyond scale of imagining. So very, very similar. There was less fantasy than I thought there would be, less in-game magic, but it doesn't diminish the experience.
Awesome. We'll jump to Richard, if you could kind of tell us the same kinds of stuff, things that you thought beforehand, stuff that you thought when you got there or after you were there, and then also some quick little tips.
I'm not going to be as eloquent as Summer, but the main difference to me was that there was less in-character sort of role-play immersion than I was expecting in general. It was there, you could seek it out, you could interact with it, and I certainly didn't feel there wasn't enough of it. It just there was less of it than I was expecting. That was the main difference for me.
Yeah, gotcha. And what would you say as a tip for people coming out their first time?
Oh, if you haven't been to one of the large European LARPs, don't try to come with any expectations. You won't get it right, which means you'll either be disappointed or badly prepared. Don't try to imagine what it's going to be and prepare for that, because it won't work.
Yeah, it's bigger and more is going on than you could possibly manage to try to calculate beforehand. So, Jordan, what about you?
Well, I came into this not really knowing what to expect at all. I honestly was expecting like way more roleplay than there was. and also to having a lot stricter, because there were decorum requirements than they did. Like shoes seemed to be the really lax point. It's like I brought moccasins that I made myself out of leather, and everybody's walking around in combat boots. That was definitely different than I expected. And the scale, I mean, if you haven't gone to the European LARPs, the scale is just going to blow you away. So beforehand, the largest LARP I had attended camp out was 306 people, not all of them being combatants, and being in a 300 versus 460 battle was definitely something new.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of clarify, they prefer that everyone be in decorum, completely in costume, but they are also practical about things like footwear, and you will be walking a lot, and you will be walking through some terrain that is probably not great if you are like myself and only brought period correct shoes with no soles or no heel on them or anything for grip. If you have a pair of just standard pair of Doc Martens, you can wear those Doc Martens with the costume, and people aren't really going to bother you. There's a certain level of practical understanding that happens there that people are courteous about. So Brian, if you want to jump in there.
If I can just add to that, I think the level of immersion is more cool authentic than authentic.
Yeah, you're going to find fantasy elements. You're going to find not authentic elements of costuming, but you will see a lot of things that you would recognize as medieval, and you wouldn't say, "Oh, that's killing my experience because it's not perfect riveting on a 14th century cuirass." Like that doesn't. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're definitely more authentic rather than authentic period accurate clothing. They do stress immersion only because they don't want some guy showing up in Metallica t-shirt saying, "I'm a warrior." They don't want that guy showing up. And they don't want the same guy kind of like, "Wait, hold on, time out, guys. I got to check my Facebook." They're going to pop out their iPhone. They don't want that either. And so that's why they stress immersion and decorum highly. And so I definitely do that to new people. I'd say, bring your A game, because ultimately people will kind of like shame you a little bit about showing up with stuff like that. Now, going back to like my first year, which was last year, I definitely thought there would be a lot more role play. I thought it would be 7 days of just straight role play. And I was actually surprised that people were talking about out-of-game stuff, and they weren't role-playing at all. They were just playing themselves, chilling at the fire, talking about stuff. And you don't have to feel really intimidated by the fact that it's, it's not full role. And your kit, I've seen some okay kit. I mean, it's definitely cool authentic. I've seen some stuff where people kind of clearly are very new and they don't have like fantastic kit, but it got them by, and it's like I saw some jeans, I saw some work pants and things like that people wore underneath their armor, but it was usually underneath armor or underneath other garb, so that people could generally get their work pants really mucky dirty during the battles and things like that, and they can wear their really nice garb, their period stuff, for the evenings when the parties happen and the live music happens.
Absolutely. You'll find a lot of people do that. They wear the less authentic stuff under armor and under tabards and things, so that at the end of the day they have something nice to be able to put on when they want to look nice around other people.
Yeah. I was also surprised as to like how hard people were used to being hit. I come from another game called Belagarth where you have to hit hard enough for it to count. And I'm used to using body mechanics, and I'm a tall guy, and I can really swing some stick, and I can hurt some people. And people actually, the first battle, I hit a guy in the head like 5 times, and I was just going to keep hitting him until he said dead. I mean, that's generally a good rule of thumb in a combat LARP, because I've hit people and ran thinking that they're dead, but they weren't. Nope. And I was just going to keep hitting this guy in the head hard until he said dead, or in the French term that he was, okay, I've had enough. I ended up putting the guy in a concussion. So, when you do swing, understand that when you swing on the head, you don't have to really hit him that hard. And the other thing is, when they can hit them on the body that hard, just to make sure that they feel it, because sometimes they don't, or they do feel it and they're not taking it. And if you hit them hard enough to where they complain, well, they can just say, "I'm sorry. I'm just glad that you recognize that I hit you."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, say if you're coming from the SAA or Belagarth, you might want to tone down the hits a little bit. If you're coming from Amthgard, I think you're right on as far as like how hard you need to be hitting, because that's pretty accurate as to like the force and speed.
Yeah, I
And
think Dag and Amthgard are both really good analogous combat levels of hitting, how hard you're hitting, where you're hitting, that kind of thing. I think you're right in saying SCA, Belagarth, a little bit harder. They're expecting you to lay in those shots so that people are absolutely sure that people are going down because they want to go down. And then I think, like you're probably going to say Nero. If you're doing Nero light touch tap stuff, maybe you'd like to explain a little bit how that's really not going to play too well.
No, I think that the lightest touch kind of stuff, they might not feel it at all, and I would definitely step it up quite a bit. As far as like hitting it as hard, and there's definitely kind of some Nero-esque style of fighting where people kind of try and get on their tippy toes and reach out and try and snipe. Those are the really new people, you can tell, because you can usually block, maneuver, and strike where they're not going to be prepared. I would definitely start researching other game mechanics, especially SCA. I think SCA would be would very easily translate into this game system.
I would say so. As an SCA guy, I would agree that the combat style we use in the SCA is very similar. The I can't strike with my shield. When I hit to the head, it should be with conviction, but not in order to like concuss the guy. I'm not trying to trying to make sure that you felt it. And helmets are very much encouraged. You'll find that 80% of people on the field are wearing a helmet, whether it be a very padded arming cap, or it's a steel helmet, or it is a leather cap. You're going to want to wear something for some head protection. Because you'll get the kills. People aren't going to see, hey, he's not wearing any kind of head protection, I'm not going to take that kill. They're going to go ahead and still hit you. 90% of people, though, are very cool about, hey, he's not wearing head protection, I'm not going to blast him in the head.
Yeah. And I've tried to be gentle with my head hits, but even then, it's you're still getting hit in the head without a helmet, and that's Sucktown. You don't want to deal with that.
Definitely not stuck.
Also, there are pole arms out there that have real wooden, bamboo poles, and if you're in the front line without a helmet, they're trying to hit the guy behind you. You're getting hit in the head with that pole handle sometimes. It's not intentional. It's not particularly hard. It's still getting hit in the head with wood. You're going to want to wear a helmet for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's important to keep in mind, is that safety is very important for people, and should be important for you as well as when you come out.
To cover the side of Brian's last point, though, coming from a lightest touch world, most of, if not all of my LARP experience has been lightest touch type stuff. And I was a little intimidated by the concept of this SCA Belagarth style hitting happening out there on the field. Sure, I was wearing armor whenever I went out to combat, but I never felt like I was getting blasted. I never felt like I was getting hit harder than I was comfortable with. And I can't think of a single lightest touch LARP where I've not had to ask someone to dial back hits. Yet at Bicolline, where it wasn't lightest touch, I never had to ask anyone to dial back hits.
Right.
So people are striking comfortably. They're not, winding up to blast you out over the fences.
Absolutely.
It's there's a high level of sportsmanship at Bicolline, and nobody's aiming to hurt you. They're just making sure that you feel the hits.
Absolutely. And you'll notice that guys who wear plate, people are hitting those guys a lot harder than guys who are wearing cloth. And it's not because they're trying to show, like, ha, I beat the guy in plate. It's, ha, I hit you, but also, hey, I need to let you know I hit you. Because, I know that, Richard, you wear plate, I wear a lot of plate. Brian, you have a giant beard. Sometimes you don't feel things, and and you get hit a little bit harder. Also, Richard has a giant beard too. You gotta hit these guys a little bit harder, just so that they know they got hit. But it doesn't mean like, hey, I'm gonna throw my hips into this. I mean, if you're an SCA guy, you throw your hips into those shots to add a lot of power. You don't need to throw your hips into shots in order to let people know. Sometimes just a good snapshot's going to go ahead and do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we are running down to the last few minutes of what we have for tonight. We were trying to aim for about an hour. Unfortunately, we didn't get to a lot of the things we wanted to get to, which is why we're going to be planning to do a second one of these, which is where we're going to be talking a lot about what next year has going on, and we're going to have a lot of things to discuss about what we're hoping to bring in next year and some of our plans and things that we're changing from this last year. So kind of as a final note for all of this, and I'd really like to thank all of you guys for joining. Summer had to bow out. Unfortunately, she had day job stuff to take care of for tomorrow. I'd like to thank you guys for coming in and joining. For the viewers, thank you guys for watching. Just kind of close things out, I'd like to ask each of you what's one thing you're looking forward to for next year, and I know that maybe you can give us an idea of something you learned from this last year that you could share with people. And Brian, we can start with you.
Okay, next year. I came pretty prepared this year. There's little nitpicky things like my knee cops. I'd like to change that up because they were kind of interfering with my running. I listened to this lecture by this guy named Matthew in England, and he says that if you have a little bit of time and a little bit of money, invest in it for this amount, for this baby step, and then by the time you actually get to the big event, you'll be prepared. And so I think I'm going to take that little tidbit of knowledge instead of waiting till like the last 30 days to get like every inspirational idea done. And that means I'm going to be missing most of my sleep, and I'm going to just get so frustrated and tired. And I'm just going to like throw a tantrum and vow off LARPing altogether because I can't get everything done in time. I think if I just start now and really work hard for an entire year until next year, I'll have something significant. I think that's definitely the one thing that I'll do for this next year. And I would definitely reiterate Summer in the sense that it's hard to pack all the necessities and the creature comforts that you kind of like in a camp out if you fly in. If you have no choice, then you have no choice. But if you can drive, if it's less than, say, 18 hours, if it's 18 hours or more, I would say drive it. I would definitely encourage people to drive that.
Yeah, I mean, I drove 23 and a half hours, 24 hours to Bicolline this last year. That was a heck of a drive, especially in a one shot, but I think it was completely worth it to have all those little things that I wanted. And I was really fortunate to have been able to share a tent with Richard and Camara, and we had a fantastic tent. We had an absolutely fantastic tent. And that another quick note is that the Voyage North does supply tents. So if you don't have a tent, if you don't have a sleeping cot, those are things that we handle and we make sure are available when you get there and completely set up and ready to roll. So all you really need to bring is yourself, your gear, and a sleeping bag and pillow, and you're basically ready to roll. So we'll jump over to Jordan next. Something that you learned from this last year and something you look forward to next year.
Something I learned was how well you can disguise certain things that you wouldn't expect to work as from like modern stuff as a decorum piece. Like Tom wore khaki pants that he got at Walmart, and I really could not tell the difference between that and the tan linen pants I was wearing right then and there. It was just like
quick and cheap.
And his cost $10, and mine probably cost like 40 or 50.
Just to jump in real quick, keep in mind that Jordan's pants split down the middle. So
That was my pants, and they completely were destroyed from ankle or from knee past the crotch all the way to the belt line. So yes, I did spend $10 on those pants. No, they did not last past that first fight.
Yeah. Okay. Now I had gotten some some canvas kind of Carhartt style work pants, and I'm still wearing them. They're still pretty tough, and I've had them for a couple of years now. And I do LARP in them, and they're just great pants to have when you're LARPing. And most people, when you throw some leg wraps around them, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, not at all, not at all. So okay, it's something you're looking forward to next year, Jordan.
Something I'm looking forward next year is I'm actually trying to get a convoy together, so we people can actually bring the stuff that they want, like bigger stuff that you can't bring on a plane, and make it so that people can join in if they want. We're probably going to start something up. We're trying to get as many people to join in as possible. We'll be starting from Washington, going our way over through New York.
Yeah, that's going to be fantastic. So what he's saying is basically they're going to be getting a caravan of vehicles that are going to travel together all the way from Washington out to New York and then north into Montreal. So if you live kind of in that general run across the northern part of the United States, we'll probably have information on how you can jump in on that and basically have a way to get to Bicolline without having to fly. If you've got some gear that you need to bring that you can't get on a plane, polearms, some large shields and things. I know Richard and Chimera have some horror stories about trying to take care of that stuff in flight that we'll probably talk about next time we get together for one of these hangouts. And we'll probably do a hangout entirely on packing and how the best way to go ahead and get your stuff to an event, because I think there's a lot of great things that will help people, even if they're not coming to Bicolline, applicable knowledge that could be used. So, Richard, if you could tell us, your thing that you really look forward to for next year, but also really learn from.
I don't know. I think they're kind of connected. I'm looking forward to arriving and knowing what to expect this time around. Not having those expectations, like I said, that even having been to some of the large European labs, I had completely wrong, and took me a couple days to catch up with and be doing Bicolline the way Bicolline works. So I'm looking forward to being able to take that at a running start this year. Things I learned this year, so many things. I can't put my finger on any one of them. It's kind of a global feeling of learning stuff. Yeah, I can't put my finger on any one thing.
Yeah, well, I guess that says a lot in itself. Then how much you took away from it. I think I would fall into the same category. Being a person who's been in LARP and been LARP for over a decade, I've visited tons of LARP, and working with larping.org is offered me the rare opportunity to visit a ton of LARPs and to really get a chance to get a really broad range and understanding of what LARP can be, and also what oftentimes happens when it goes wrong, and goes wrong in the sense of things don't run the way that you're hoping they're going to. And I learned a ton about how a LARP can be run, and how a LARP can be managed, and how if I was ever going to start a LARP that was wider scale, how I would plan things. I think the staff at Bicolline, Olivier and Basha, have done a fantastic job of structuring things so they can build. I also learned a ton, and I would change in the future. The same kind of thing Richard says, how Bicolline works, and how going and meeting people and getting to know people, and the kind of networking that you do once you get there, how much that actually changes your experience for all positive ways. It's very rare you're going to go meet people and talk to them and get to know them and find that it was a negative experience. And I would say 99% of the time you're going to go meet people, you're going to go have experiences, and when you come out of it, you're going to say, wow, I learned something really cool, or I met this person that I can use in the future as a networking piece to go meet other people. And meeting people is really important at Bicolline, and it really expands the opportunities that you have when you get there. I would also say that having the right gear is awesome, and I have to unbelievably thank Epic Armory Canada. They have been the most fantastic sponsors in helping us make sure that everyone had gear at a fantastic opportunity to get us the gear when we got there. I am so proud of the stuff that they do and the company that Pat Penning runs. And if you haven't checked out Epic Armory Canada, be sure to go check those guys out. If you're in Canada, be sure to check them out. They've got locations where you can buy gear all over Canada. But being able to use him as a tool, I learned a lot about how I can build kit off what's available off the shelf, and how I can use that and build from it to make really fantastic costumes for really affordable prices, with very little real work in the long run. And then I think the biggest thing taking away for next year is bringing more people with us. This year we had 21 people, and it was the coolest group of 21 people I have ever spent a week with. Yeah. I'm bringing my fiance this next year. I'm bringing tons of close friends from the area that I LARP with. I've got some other family I'm hoping to bring with me. I mean, it's something that I don't want to hide under a bushel, so to speak. I want to really bring friends and family and other LARPers into this, and it's the reason that LARPing.org decided to do this trip was to give other people the opportunity to go to this LARP, what is basically the largest LARP in North America, and to get the experience and be able to take that home and hopefully better the LARPs that they're at, because they've had this experience on this scale. So overall, just unbelievable time. And I hope that over the next couple of months we'll be able to do more of these hangouts. We are very proud to announce that we're going to be taking deposits and pre-registration, meaning you can sign up and say, hey, I would love to put my deposit in the future for the trip. You go to voyagenorth.larping.org. Go ahead and fill out the form at the bottom of the page. Let us know you're interested in coming, and we'll get in touch with you to help to make sure that you're in the loop on all the information. You don't need to put anything down. Just give us your information so that we can make sure you're in the loop. And we're going to be starting that as of now. So you will be able to sign up and say you're ready to go for next year starting today. That would be September 24th, 2014. So you got tons of time to be able to get ready for next year if you're interested in going, and we'll be able to give tons of information between now and next March when we actually open up full registration. So I am, again, Tom Miller, Creative Director of LARPing.org, and with me I have Brian Hadenga, I've got Jordan Vick, and I have Richard. I forget your last name, Richard. What's your new last name? Sorry. That's what happens when you're from South Africa. So, works for you. Anyway, so from all of us at LARPing.org and the team from the Voyage North, thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this video afterward, be sure to check out LARPing.org for all the latest LARP news and information from around the LARP community worldwide. Have a good one.